Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. Thank you for having another listen, guys. Just before we get into the show, just want to talk to you about a new sponsor that's come on board, Books and Gifts Direct. Books and Gifts Direct is Australia's largest direct seller of books and gifts. They sell their products in lunchrooms, reception desks, and now in more than 25,000 workplaces in Australia. Their books and gifts sell up to 70% off recommended retail price, and as the largest direct seller of books and gifts across Australia, they have a strong buying power, and without the overheads of a shop front, they can afford to pass on significant savings. So guys, if you want to take a look at this, the link will be below in the description. But guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into the show. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. I do apologize for being a bit in and out of the podcast, just everything going on with life, but it is what it is. We'll get past it. Guys, this episode today, a bit of the NBA wrap-up. It's been basically like 4 to 5 weeks since I've done a podcast, I think, so it's pretty slack of me. But I'm just going to go everything between those weeks, so those 4 to 5 weeks, wrap everything up. The All-Star starters have come out, so we'll talk about that too, but let's not waste any more time, guys. Let's get straight into the show. Welcome to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. So on today's episode, guys, first off, we'll get at cab out of the ranks. All-Star starters have come out. The Western Conference, as we know right now, starters have come out. Pretty good starters, if you've asked me. Obviously, everybody's talking about Andrew Wiggins, and does he actually deserve to be an All-Star? Look, it's hard because is he one of the 5 best players in the Western Conference? Is he a top 5 player in the Western Conference right now? No, he's not a top 5 player in the Western Conference, but I do think he's a very, very good player, and you know, depending on Draymond, if he makes it, depending on injury and voting, Golden State needed to have two All-Stars in the Western Conference All-Star team, right? Because I just believe everything that they do, the start that they got off to without Clay, it was super impressive to me, and I think it was super impressive to everybody in the NBA. Now, I did think Golden State were going to be a really good team, but I didn't think they were going to be this good straight away. I thought it would have been a bit of an adjustment period, and they could have been a real dark horse, but they're looking like a dead set favourite to me. You know, obviously they're the second seed in the West right now, behind obviously the Phoenix Suns. But I just think that going back onto Andrew Wiggins there, I actually do think he deserves it. You know, you don't really look at his stats, but you know he's averaging about 19 points a game. You know, he's shooting career high 3-point percentage. He defends the best player on the court at all times. Those things for me, that shows me that he's growing as a player and he's maturing in age as a player too. And that's something that you got to realize that, you know, when he was first in the league, he was just looking to be a scorer, and he was the first or second option. Now when they have Clay, he'll be the third option scoring, right? So now he just has to get his shots up, and he has to be smart and economical with his shots. But you know, I'm really impressed with what he's doing. You know, his rebounds and assists doesn't smash breakouts you is great, but I think he's doing a really, really good job, and he deserves it. He's playing really, really good. And I think people actually underestimate how important he is to that Warriors team, especially defensively. You know, the other stars, we got Steph Curry. Obviously, that's a dead set, easy pick. Right now for me, if not the MVP, he's in the MVP conversation. He's the best point guard in the world right now. You know, coming close to his tail right now is Ja Morant, don't get me wrong, but right now, he's still the best point guard in the NBA. So I'm really, really impressed with what he's doing. Obviously, we have Nikola Jokic, the reigning MVP. That's a dead set, easy choice. I think he's the best center in the NBA, and what he does, you know, on the court, people actually don't realize how good he is. And when he stops playing in the league, I think people are going to underappreciate how good of a player he was. Some of the stuff he does, it's insane. Like, it's honestly like you don't realize how good of a player he really, really is. So, you know, I'm really excited on him, you know, making that All-Star again, and I'm happy that he's kind of getting the credit that he deserves. You know, obviously he deserves way more credit, but I love that. You know, we also have LeBron. LeBron's an easy choice too, guys. He's obviously one of the best players ever. You know, I didn't realize he was like top 3 in the point scoring until I really looked at him, because he didn't really play a lot. And then I actually looked at the past 10, 15 games, and he was like averaging like 28 points a game. And I thought, fuck, that's pretty impressive if you ask me. Like, he was doing a really, really good job. So I'm still impressed with him. You know, Father Time hasn't got to him yet, which is crazy because he is a gun. And then Ja, obviously, I talked about it a little bit, but Ja Morant for me, guys, he's not just the most improved player in the NBA for me. I think if the Grizzlies keep going the way they do, he could definitely be an MVP candidate, because he just had a triple-double today as I'm recording this. He's a bucket, man. He's honestly dead set nuts. I said on this podcast, on record, that I thought he was going to be an MVP within 3 to 5 years. I definitely think that's going to be a true statement. I think he'll definitely get an MVP, especially because how good, they played the Grizzlies as a team. They're a super deep team too, and that's the next topic I want to talk about before I get into the Eastern Conference All-Stars is the Grizzlies as a team. I thought they were good, but I didn't realize how deep they are. Like, you look at their roster, I believe this to the core. I just think that they're about, I would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 deep. 12 deep at least. That I don't really see that within a lot of NBA teams. Now, people can think I'm wrong, people can think I'm right, but I think they're that deep. Like, they are very, very good. Like, their rookie Isaiah Williams, when he comes in, he does a role. And I think the team that they built, with Taylor Jenkins, they just go out there and they just want to win. They don't care who gets the points, who gets the stats. Obviously, Jar's the ringleader, and he's the alpha on that team, but nobody else really cares. They just want to get their job done and win. Perfect example is that is Brandon Clark coming off the bench. He would probably start on most NBA teams, I would assume, if you ask me. He's that good of a player, but he comes off the bench and he gets his role done. And that just shows me and epitomizes the Grizzlies right now. I was high on them. I didn't think they were going to be this good. I didn't think they were going to be the third best team in the West. I obviously thought they were going to be a bit of a dark horse because the West is a bit, depleted with injuries. You got Denver depleted. You got the Clippers depleted. Portland's fallen off a cliff. The Lakers haven't got it together. So I definitely thought that they could have been a really, really interesting team. But if you look at it now, I think that they could definitely beat they could beat a Utah Jazz. They could beat a Dallas. They can beat a Denver in the first round, wherever they fall, and they can be in that second round. If they versus Golden State, look, I would still say Golden State win, but, mate, that would be one of the most entertaining series, I'd say, in the past 10 years of basketball, because for some reason, and Coach says this, Chrissy, Memphis has Golden State's number. They know how to beat them, and that's something that you shouldn't take for granted. And obviously, that could just be, that things can fall their way, but they've been able to do it consistently, beating them. So I would love to see that matchup. But going back, the Grizzlies, I think, they're the Cinderella story of this year in the Western Conference. And then I want to talk about Cleveland, right? Cleveland, for me, and this is the next topic I want to talk to, and then I'll get into my East, because this is just very interesting, if you ask me. The Cleveland Cavaliers, if you were to say to LeBron James, what would be a better fit for LeBron right now? Playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers or playing with the Los Angeles Lakers? It's not as clear-cut as you would think. You would say, the Lakers, they got AD, they got Russ. I don't know, man. I think the contrary. I'd probably say Cleveland. They got Darius Garland, who's a very, very smart player. He should be an all-star this year. He might not make it. He might be the biggest snub right now because it's hard. There's only 12 players. But you have Darius Garland, who's been career year. You have Lauri Markkanen, who's playing really, really well. He's kind of found a new lease in life there at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Great to see him do that. You've got Evan Mobley, one of the Rookie of the Year candidates right now, who's been really, really good, been better than what I expected. This guy is going to be a dead set freak in the NBA, averaging 15 and 8. You've got Jared Allen, a great, great player who just does all the dirty work, plays hard, plays super physical, and just does his role super well. You've got Rajon Rondo there. You still have Colin Sexton injured. Dylan Windler's a player I actually really like too. He doesn't average a lot of points, but he's a good role player, gets his job done. Kevin Love would be doing the exact same role on a championship contending team if he didn't get traded. And I love that they didn't trade him, they didn't buy him out, because he's a really good person, first off, but he's a really good leader for that locker room, and he gets along with those players. So I'm really happy with them. You put LeBron on this team, and I don't know, I wouldn't be shocked if they were to beat some teams. Honestly, I could see them beating Brooklyn if they had LeBron there. I could see them beating Philly. I don't know about Milwaukee, but they're pretty good. So I think Cleveland Cavaliers, no matter what happens this season, whether they drop to the 6th seed, whether they get into the play-in, whatever happens, they are the overachievers of the East for me, and I just think people need to talk about them more often. And I kind of talked about them in one of my previous podcasts, but they've been doing this consistently now, and without Rubio too, because I thought Rubio was one of their key pieces. But without Rubio, they're dominating. They're going really, really well. 30 and 19. That's not easy. They're over 66%. They're at a win percentage of 612. Right now, if they were in the Western Conference at 612, they'd be the 4 seed. So they're actually a good team. That's insane. If you ask me, because I thought they would have been near the bottom of the Eastern Conference rankings and near the bottom of the league in general, to be quite honest with you. So I just have to talk about that. Now I'll move into my take on the Eastern Conference starters. I think that they kind of got these pretty right, to be quite honest. Obviously, we'll start off with DeMar DeRozan. DeMar, obviously, one of the leading vote getters in the guards. I love him as a guard. I mean, as a starter. I don't know if he's a guard. I think he's more of a wing front court player. You know, sometimes he was playing a little bit of 4-man here. But you just have to have, for me, just pick the 5 best players. I think they should abolish the front court, back court system. Just pick the 5 best players. 5 best players you think, and just do that. Because that's what it is. Exhibition game. They're not running plays out there. But DeMar DeRozan, thoroughly deserved right now in MVP candidacy too. I think he's, if the season ended today, he would be the first team All-NBA in some sort of position, if you ask me. He's playing that good. New lease of life in Chicago. I think they're going really, really well. I think they're going to be a team that's going to be a dark horse in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I'm not too sure how far they'll get. Maybe a second round, but I have no idea. But stranger things have happened. But they're a team that when they play full strength, they mesh really well, and they have pieces that, correlate with each other. So I'm really excited to see them. I'm excited for DeMar too. He's one of the great guys in the NBA. Trae Young, for me, I think is a top 5 point guard in this league. I think when you really watch just Trae Young play, a lot of people thought he was Steph Curry. I think he's very much Steve Nash type. He can shoot the ball, but he can play make. I think he's probably the top 3 playmaker in the NBA right now. I'd say him, Jokic, and probably LeBron. Draymond has to be close there too, but I think that, and CP3 also, but there's obviously people I'm going to miss, but he is really, really good, especially within the pick and roll. He might be the best pick and roll, assist man in the NBA right now, currently, just on form. I think he deserves it. I think he's a really, really good player. And, Atlanta are kind of, getting a little bit of momentum. They're 23 and 25 right now. I wouldn't want to verse them in the playoffs if I was a team, because, they've proven to beat some good teams, and they can go up against adversity and play really well. There has been a bit of trade talks, maybe John Collins, but that comes up every year. And look, they've given him the max, so I'm not too sure what they're going to do trade-wise. If they want Ben Simmons, yeah, I get it, but, they already got Trae. And to be honest, I think Trae's better than Ben Simmons anyway. So that's just my opinion. Giannis, obviously, that's an easy pick. Probably, some guy that you look at a scouting report, you're like, how the hell am I going to defend this guy? He's an obvious pick, guys. I love him so much as a player, as a person too. He's a great guy, a great spokesperson for the NBA. So he's a great pick, obviously. KD as the leading vote getter in the East and the captain. That's an easy pick too. Now, he probably won't be playing this game because, remember, he did get a knee sprain. So he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. So that's going to be a spot open. Not too sure who's going to take that. They might just do who is the next leading vote getter. That could be a possibility, but he's not going to be there. And then, obviously, Joel Embiid, the second best, or whatever your opinion is, the best center in the NBA. He's doing a really, really good job with that Philadelphia team. A lot of people actually underestimate how good they're going. They're the 5th seed in the East right now without their second best player, and they haven't even got anything for him. If they can get some good pieces for him, maybe they could be a team that is a Smokey in that Eastern Conference. But yeah, I just think that Joel Embiid needs to get a little bit more credit. I think he's a center that if he was in the 2000s, MVP. He would be that good of a player, in the 80s, the 80s to the 2000s. He would be a dominant force. So, I think people got to realize how good of a player he really is. But I think they got it right with the East. I think they fairly got it right with the West too. I'm not angry that Wiggins made it. I'm not angry because it depended on Draymond if he gets voted in or not, because you're not too sure. I would have him voted in, obviously, but I think Golden State deserved 2 players in the All-Star. Obviously, Phoenix deserve players in there too, and Chris Paul and Devin Booker will both get named as reserves, I would thoroughly think. But that's my take on the East and West. If they were to play a game, starting-wise, I would take the Eastern Conference. I think the Eastern Conference is just a bit more balanced. I think the KD, Giannis, and Joel Embiid front court is just so dominant. It would just really bash the Western Conference there. But let's not kid ourselves. Western Conference has 3 out of, probably the 6 or 7, MVP candidates right there. So it would be a really good team. My reserves, I'll do another podcast on that maybe in a couple of days, because I just want to really think about it, because I did a take on it really, really early, and it's changed. It's definitely changed. There's a lot of players that would be there that aren't, and a lot of players that aren't there that would be, for me. Obviously, Darius Garland's going to be a big piece. Will he make it, depending on it? I think that a Cleveland player will make it. I think it's more in line that Jarrett Allen will make it, just based on the fact that front court is pretty shallow in the East compared to the guards, because guards are always going to be super stacked. Like you look at it, Chicago has Lonzo, who could have possibly been an all-star. Obviously, Darius Garland's better. But, you got Zach LaVine, Cleveland Darius, Brooklyn, James Harden. He didn't get voted in. Milwaukee have Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Charlotte. They have LaMelo. Boston are going to have Jason Tatum, I'm assuming, in there. So Toronto, Fred VanVleet. So it's interesting. Bradley Beal from the Wizards. So there's a lot of people that are going to, some people are going to get brushed, unfortunately. And that is what it is. But I think they got it, fairly right, the fans on the All-Star. When I was a kid, I used to vote like every day. I think I voted once, and I voted basically my favourite players. I had Ja, Steph, Draymond in my Western Conference. I had LeBron and Embiid, and Jokic. I just had the players that I think that are the best players in their conference. But that's just my opinion. Next thing I want to talk about, and if none of you people at the moment have looked at the standings in a while, which is fair because I hadn't looked at the standings in maybe a couple of days, 3 or 4 days. That's a long time for me. The first seed in the Eastern Conference today, as I'm recording this on the 29th of January, is the Miami Heat. Now, Miami started super hot, in the regular season, and then a bit of injuries hit them. They had, Bam Adebayo coming off injury. They had Jimmy Butler coming off injury. They had Kyle Lowry in and out, a bit inconsistent. Now, you look at them, first seed. As I said before the start of the season, I said the danger teams in the Eastern Conference, for me, was Miami. The danger team in the West, for me, was Golden State. They are both respectively first in their conference and second in their conference. Now, that just shows me how important these teams are, and it shows me how good these teams are, because there's one thing you can't fault within a team: coaching. If you have great coaching, you're going to be a good team no matter what. Miami and Golden State, if you ask me, have two of the best three, I would say, coaches in the NBA. I would say the next coach would be obviously Greg Popovich, but I would say those two right now are really, really good. I have to say, I really like Taylor Jenkins too, and I really like JB Bigstaff and the seasons they're doing. But I think the reason why Miami is so good is their coaching, and I think Miami is going to be a team that I think that they could definitely get to the finals again, because Chicago are a bit unproven at the moment. Cleveland, I need to see them in a 7-game playoff series. Brooklyn, with the Kyrie situation, I just don't think they can win the comp like that. I think it's too hard. Philadelphia with Joel Embiid, yeah, they'll be good, but I think they just don't have enough pieces at the moment, especially without Ben Simmons. If they can go get a haul for Ben Simmons, yeah, absolutely. Milwaukee, that's the danger team too. Milwaukee's the reigning champions. They're the 6th seed right now, but if they were to win one game and, Cleveland, Brooklyn, Philadelphia lose, they're the 3rd seed again. So the East is pretty close. I would say right now, if I had to go Eastern Conference Finals, I'd probably go Milwaukee. They'd have a hard way to get it, but if they were to finish now, they'd versus Cleveland, who they would beat, and then Chicago or Charlotte. So I would say that they would beat both of them too, to be quite honest. So I would say I would have Milwaukee. I would have Miami too. I think Miami are going to be a team that's going to be really, really strong. The more that they play chemistry-wise, the better they'll be. And I just think they're built to beat teams defensively. Their defensive lineups they can throw out there is pretty intense. So I'm really, really excited to see that. But I just wanted you guys to know that Miami's the 1st seed in the East, Chicago's the 2nd, and Cleveland's the 3rd. I would have had no wild imagination in my thoughts. No, sorry. I said that wrong. Not in my wildest dreams would I have thought that Miami, Chicago, and Cleveland would have been the top 3 seeds in the Eastern Conference in January, late January. I just wouldn't have thought of that. So that's crazy to say. It's crazy to see the NBA and the way it's going. Last topic I want to talk about, guys. I did dabble in a little bit about coaches, but Coach of the Year candidates for me, if I was to pick 3, I'd have JB Bigstaff out of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'd have Billy Donovan from the Chicago Bulls, and I would have Taylor Jenkins from the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, if you were to ask me what's the most surprising team out of this, it's Cleveland. It's Cleveland easily, because you look at it, Memphis made the playoffs last season, so you can't take the discredit from them. And then Chicago, a lot of people didn't know what they're going to be, but people thought they were going to be good. They had a great off season, and last season they improved from where they were the season before, so they were taking jumps. Who would I say is the Coach of the Year? I would say it's Taylor Jenkins, because I think that what he's doing with that team, as young as they are, it's super impressive to me. And it shows me the culture and the system he's building within a club and an organization. So I would go Taylor Jenkins. Yes, I do love Memphis a lot, and I love everything about them. But I just think that I never thought they were going to be this good. But I think if it's a realist choice, it would probably go to Billy Donovan from the Chicago Bulls. And you can't be angry with that because he's done a fantastic job with this team. You know, I think that they're probably going to be, you know, a team that has a lot of fan love, you know. And when I say that so when in the playoffs, right? So say if your teams get knocked out, who's the next team you're going to go for that you'll want to win? You would like to see win the championship. I would say Chicago would have a lot of people that would want them to win again. You know, you look in the West too. I would probably say Memphis would have a lot of people that would root for them if their team had gotten knocked out. So I think that's going to help, you know, Chicago get that Coach of the Year. But yeah, I just think that the coaching right now, like you look at the top four teams in each conference, you see like the better coaches in that mold. And I think Taylor Jenkins is going to be a really, really good coach. He might not be the best coach, but I think he's going to be a really good coach. And what he does there, I love it. I think Memphis is going to be a team that's going to be smoky for, I think, the next 2 to 3 years. Because from then you're going to have to pay a lot of your players, and what you're going to do decisions-wise there, I just have no idea. But, guys, that's today's episode. I do appreciate you guys listening as always. I'm going to try to knock out a little bit more podcasts at the moment. But, guys, thank you for listening. You can want to catch us on our socials. You'll hear this right now, but thank you, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe all of the content that's coming your way. Hit us up on Instagram at LanesMedia_, all under capitalized letters. Thanks for listening, guys, but most importantly, have a great day.